Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon and our 12 Days of Christmas top 12 lists. Today, for day 2, we're going to be covering solo games. So these are games that are either designed to play solo only or really don't work as well multiplayer, play much better solo. A lot of these may say 1 to 2 players on the box, and 2 players is almost just kind of like a tacked on thing. We'll see a couple of those. There is I think just one game that has higher than a 2-player count, but I'll explain why that one is on my list here shortly. So without further ado, let's get started. With number 12 is Proving Grounds. So Proving Grounds is actually part of the Solo Hero series by Renegade Games, and I really have high hopes for this series. They basically are dedicating to producing a whole line of games that are solo only games, and this was their first one in their line, and I feel like it was a good attempt, but their games have gotten better since. So Proving Grounds is a real-time dice rolling game where essentially you are given a minute to roll out your dice, and then you assign them. You can see the person here in the middle of this rondel thing, and everybody around you, surrounding you, is anybody that's going to attack you. The theme of this game is like you're a gladiator in ancient Rome type of thing. And why this came, I don't rave about it because it's really just fun. It's very easy to pick up on and learn, and the dice, the components are nice quality. But the aspect of you have a minute to roll your dice. As you're rolling, you can only re-roll sets. So you have to have at least a pair of something, and when you pick up the dice to re-roll them, you have to re-roll the whole set. Okay, well that's fine. You know, it just keeps you from just re-rolling everything. But what really got me was that you need sets to then attack people. That most of the stats, and if you look closely on those cards, it says things like 2+, 3+, 4+, all the way up at the top, or specific dice colors. You can only damage that person if you have 2+ of that die, and if they're in the 5th position, you need 5s. So it really always felt like you would have this really amazing roll, but then just have 3 dice off to the side that you couldn't do anything with. Well, you wanted to do something with them. Well, then you had to blow up your amazing roll of all your sets, and sometimes this game could be very swingy. Sometimes it could, you could have amazing rolls and really take out a bunch of guys and be doing great, and other times you just get slaughtered. Luckily, it's a quick game, so it may not really matter at the end of the day, but this one, I just didn't quite understand. It felt like it was being almost too punishing on you. At the end of the day, it is still a quick, fun little game if you appreciate, that dice rolling or the pressure of a kind of real-time game, similar to like a Fuse, or I'm trying to think of what else is there. But there is a timer that you have to keep up with. So if that's what you want that time crunch, this is definitely one to take a look at. Coming in at number 11 is Unbroken. Unbroken is another completely solo game of survival. Now, Unbroken is the first, but not the only game on this list that was originally a print and play. So this was a game designed by an individual. It was placed on Board Game Geek, and is truly a survival game. It is a survival dungeon crawler that's been minimized down to only what is necessary. So you'll see the various tracks here on these 2 cards that you have to keep up with. And I believe what we're looking at here in the main picture is like a printed out version, because the Kickstarter version had like multi-layer boards that kept your cubes in place, which was really nice. But essentially you're spending time and effort to make your way through the dungeon, coming across minor encounters to then eventually take on like a level 1 boss, then a level 2 boss, 3, and then level 4 boss. All you have to do is survive, really. You don't have to even necessarily defeat them, just survive. There is not really much dice rolling. The dice rolling is usually only to determine what the boss or somebody might do with their attack. It's really nice that this game is reduced down. It's a small box game, but there's a lot in the box. It can get kind of big on the table as far as just being in such a small box, but it gives you that roguelike RPG feel. The only problem is it is a tough game. That's the reason why it's higher up on this list. It is a survival game, and it's going to test your limits and your survival. You really have to look ahead and kind of plan out what resources am I going to use because you have so few of them, and how am I going to spend my effort, and can I get like the maximum and the double efforts so I can do those big attacks on the boss when it comes. And it's just it can be a very punishing game. But for some people, they really enjoy that. That's what they want out of a game. They don't want a happy-go-lucky game. So if you're looking for a dungeon crawl experience in a small box, minimalistic, this is a great one to check out. At number 10, we have Black Sonata. So back to back, this is another game that originally started as a print and play. So Black Sonata does something that I guess maybe other games do, but at least ones that I haven't felt did as well. This is a hidden movement game that is solo. So you are trying to find the Dark Lady. And this is an ode to a Shakespeare play or something Shakespearean, but you are trying to kind of make your way around London. You can see the map here, and you're moving like single destinations at a time, and there's this deck of cards which determines where the lady is moving. And not only do you have to kind of track down the lady, pinpoint her and her location, if you do, then you get a clue towards her. So it's a little bit of hidden movement with a mixture of kind of a simple deduction game. So you are given clues. A lot of times it's maybe what she's not. She may not be wearing this in her picture, or she may not be part of this guild, or she may not, have this color hair or something like that. That's what a lot of the clues are. So you kind of have to, all right, I have really deduced that it's not this one, or this one, but it could be any of these three. So you're never going to guess her on just one clue. So you're going to have to go and track her down probably at least 3 times. And again, you don't quite know where you're going. You can see that the cards physically have a hole in them. So when you say, all right, this is where her location is, and you pick it up and you place it, if you see her little picture there, you've kind of cornered her and you can get a clue. Eventually leading to just being able to say, all right, this is her. The game works really well for a hidden movement game. And I had no problem. This is one I actually just own print and play. I do not own the physical copy because I printed it out. I used a hole punch, and that's like the perfect size to create your hole. And it all just worked out, and I was surprised that it worked. Like, I didn't mess anything up on my print and play. And so I've been perfectly happy with the print and play version, and you can still get the print and play version on Board Game Geek. So yeah, if you're wanting something a little different, not many games can do this. Hidden movement, usually it's a one versus many game, but this one enables you to have a hidden movement game in a solo setting. So yeah, at the end of the day, the reason it's not higher is that you can replay it. I don't necessarily want to replay it a bunch in one sitting. I don't feel like I could take just this one game with me on vacation and be satisfied. Maybe some people can, if you're a big Shakespeare fan, but it's a great little filler, great little game, and can be completely free minus the cost of materials if you wanted to print it out yourself. Number 9. This is technically the Unlock series of games. Now this is one of the ones that I believe it says up to 7 or 8 on the box can play. My personal preference of the series of games, especially the boxes that come with like 3 puzzles in a box, is the Star Wars one. That's why I have it up here. Now, there's not a whole lot here I can show you, But these few pictures just give you a good idea of kind of what the cards look like that you're going to see. You know, there's no spoilers here. Nothing that you see here is going to give away anything. The reason why this I consider to be a solo game is that a lot of the puzzle nature that you have to solve is looking at the card, right? And trying to find some kind of clue on the card, some little tiny hidden number or something like that. There's a lot of that in the game. And the cards are not very big. You know, they are like standard size cards. So it's really hard for you to share the game with other people unless you're just passing around and then everybody else is just sitting around being like, eh. You know, a lot of the kind of escape rooms in a box have like multiple things and puzzles to physically put your hands on. This is really just a deck of cards. It's completely, you can reset it and pass it along to another person so they can play, but the fact that it's just a set of cards and a lot of it is just looking at the cards means that it's really best solo. The only drawback to completely playing solo is that if you just don't quite get it, if you're just not seeing it, or the puzzle's just slightly going over your head, you're really just kind of stuck and there's no one there to help you. Now you can certainly go and get someone's help, or the app does give you hints. Now technically it gives you a lesser score at the end of the game, but I don't play unlock games to have the ultimate score. I play them just for the experience, and usually they're pretty quick. So that's why I have this on my solo game series, because just the nature of the size of the cards and what you need to do with them really lends itself better to just, all right, this is for me. I don't have to share this with anybody else. Let's play a little logic puzzle game. At number 8, we have Nemo's War. This is technically Nemo's War 2nd edition. There is a 1st edition, to my knowledge. It's pretty much the same game. But Nemo's War is easily the heaviest game on this list. It technically says 1 to 2 players, but that really just means it's splitting up like certain actions you take, and it's really kind of silly. I honestly don't know anybody who plays this regularly as a 2-player game. This one I would highly recommend if you are into 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or those older novels, those Orson Welles type novels. If those are a big draw for you, this game is right up your alley. It's a little dry. You can see that the artwork's kind of faded. The artwork on the cards looks like hand-drawn illustrations in a book. But it really fits. It fits the theme greatly. And the text, kind of flavor text on the cards is like pulled directly from the books. So if anybody's a fan of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, this is a no-brainer. But what you're doing is essentially, before the game even starts, you pick a how do you want to win the game? Do you want to be an anti-imperialist? Do you want to be a scourge of the seas? Do you want to take everything to war? Do you want to just kind of hide from everybody and come up with the most brilliant new inventions? And so depending on which kind of avenue you choose depends on how you're going to score at the end of the game. And so certain things maybe even be negative scores. You want to stay away from those, and other things will be like ×6. So you really want to go for those. That's really nice because it gives the game replay value. Where this game falls short is like I said, it's a very heavy game. It's a complicated game. It's one of those ones that unless you play it on the regular and leave it out on your table, you're going to have to reread the rule book. My biggest disappointment in the game was, for me, however, the dice rolling. There is dice checks in the game on 2 major occasions. One is tests. You do a lot of tests, and depending on where your stats are, you can see that like a purple, brown, and blue ring. Depending on how high those are, you can get bonuses to those rolls. You can ensure that you're going to get 2 successes, but usually you're looking for like 8 or 6 or 10 successes. So only adding 2, there's still a very good chance that you just roll snake eyes and completely bust. And I have had some miserable rolls. I think in the history of this game, my worst dice rolling comes when I play this game. The other thing that really I've never liked about the game is that your actions for the game, for the round, the number of actions that you can take each round is randomized by dice rolls. You roll your dice, and the difference between them is how many actions you get. I'm just not a big fan of that rule, because sometimes you could roll doubles and it's no actions. Now, you can mitigate that by playing on easy mode. Easy mode gives you 2 automatic actions every round, whereas hard gives you 0. And so if you roll doubles, there's just nothing for you to do on that round. This is something that can easily be mitigated by house ruling that rule and just say, all right, every round I'm going to get 3 actions or 4 actions. It's nice when you roll like a 1 and a 6 and now all of a sudden you've got 5 actions and you can do a ton on your turn, but it really sucks when you roll doubles and get nothing. So I was never a huge fan of that rule, but this is kind of like a slow burn game. This is one that takes a while. It's several hours to play through. There's, you're going to be following the player aid that's printed on the board constantly, going through all the steps. It is a very deep game, but it's a very satisfying game, especially if you're into the kind of genre of like, Orson Welles or those kind of novels. I would highly recommend this one. Number 7 is Seventh Continent. I honestly, I swear, I just realized that I put Seventh Continent at number 7. Did not do that intentionally, but there you have it. So Seventh Continent is another one that I think you can technically play up to 4 players. You could even, some people I know play solo and control up to 2 characters and just play two-handed. I feel like, though, the game really shines when you're playing solo because it is a survival game to the fullest. Unbroken was a survival dungeon crawler. All you really had to do was, survive some encounters, keep track of your resources. This one is pure, literally, they drop you on the island and say, with nothing. You have nothing but a deck of cards. And you're just supposed to go exploring. You don't quite know where or why or how. You might have a hint on the back of one of these cards, but it is truly the most, survival game I can think of. And I've had some amazing experiences with Seventh Continent. You essentially you have this deck of cards, and every time you want to take an action, you're going to draw from it, and sometimes all you have to do is draw a certain number of cards from it to take that action. It doesn't matter about successes. Other times you have to draw a certain number of cards and collect a certain number of successes, which are represented by stars on your cards. You can see some of them up there. The guy holding his cards, he's got like 1.5 stars. So you may draw 3 cards. And so that means sometimes you can draw, say, more cards than you need to. It may say 3+, and you draw 5 to ensure that you get 3 stars. But the problem is that deck represents kind of your lifespan on the island. So when that deck runs out, you're going to flip it over, reshuffle it one more time, and then if you run through it again, you're dead. So you don't want to, you want to get cards back into that deck as much as possible. And that's what like eating is. When you find food on the island, you just put cards back into that deck. And then every time you do a test, you can take one of those cards. You can choose one to keep in front of you. And that may be something like, handmade bola weapon. But when you get it, you first need to go somewhere where you have like rocks, and then you have to throw away a card that's giving you twine, and it is truly a survival game. It is very thematic, and so if you are looking for something that you are looking for a mystery to solve, this is it. The way the board comes together as you're laying down these square cards, and all of a sudden you start with just this one little location, then by the end of the game it's this huge map, is quite cool. It's a cool experience. This is a table hog, though. This is a long game. Just be warned, it's not super overly complicated, but it does take some time to wrap your head around what needs to happen. Honestly, I think the biggest setback for this game and why it's not even more popular than it is, and it's very popular with the, like, you know, heavy board game group out there, is that the introductory scenario, the scenario that they say to start with, is easily one of the hardest scenarios out there. If you pick up Seventh Continent, go and find the Crystal Shard, I think it is. I cover it, I believe, in one of my videos. It's something to do with a crystal. It's a small expansion. It's, you know, less than $20. It's really just some cards that you mix in with the base game. Much shorter and easier game to introduce the game with. It's like they put you in bottom of the ninth up against Nolan Ryan for your first ever, you know, in the World Series for your first ever game in Major League Baseball. That's what it's like. So don't necessarily start with the very first scenario, and I think you'll really get into the game even more. But anyways, they do have like the Kickstarter version of this game, and then a second Kickstarter, or you can get like the Essential Edition, which is the retail copy, which is still a lot. So there's multiple levels of how to get into the game. Number 6 is, I did it again. I swear I did not do this on purpose. But this is Deep Space D6. This is another game that you can do print and play of. But they have a physical version that you can purchase, and they have come out with a kind of a sequel to the game that was on Kickstarter, Deep Space Armada. But this is one that I did print and play of and have been perfectly satisfied with. I basically, you know, hand drew on some stickers. Or no, what I did was I bought some blank dice off of Amazon and then just bought some like purple circle stickers. And so that's the purple, and some blue circle stickers. And so I know that blue equals that one blue symbol, looks kind of like a fox head. Red is the red arrow. But what you're doing is you are rolling out your dice every turn, and then you're using the dice faces to, well, maybe I want to attack with this one, and I want to use this one to repair the hull. And each time you need to use at least one, and then you can re-roll them a certain number of times if you'd like. And each time, like, you draw a card, and so some ships come in, and you get added to like this queue of attackers coming against you, and then you roll that one just plain D6 in there, and that just tells you which ships activate. So you can see here on the bottom right, you know, 2 of the ships have a 6, so that missile array and hydra cannons, those would fire off against you if a 6 is rolled. If not, then you're fine. And it's going to take 3 damage to defeat each of those. So you're going to need to take, you know, get 3 arrows essentially. It's really a very straightforward game. There's actually a unofficial fan-made app of this game called something. Man, I have it on my phone, and I do play it often because it plays pretty quickly and it works well. It's pretty much the game, but it's kind of an unofficial variant. But since he can't, you know, he's not affiliated with it, he can't charge for it, so it's free too. But anyways, this is another one to check out if you're looking for a print and play, because it was pretty easy to just set up. You know, for the big ship, I just printed it off on like a big 8.5 by 11 and laminated it, and then printed off my cards. Like I told you how to make the dice. But yeah, this one is just fun. It just works. It's fun. You're just rolling dice and then deciding how you're going to use those dice or whether you're going to re-roll them or not. Number 5 is very similar to Deep Space, is another space-themed game. That's Warp's Edge. This is the second game of the Renegade Games' Solo Hero series. So this game is a bag builder. Not a deck builder, but a bag builder. So you're going to be adding tokens into a bag as you upgrade your ship. And then each round you're going to get to draw a certain number of tokens out of that bag. And then you assign said tokens to the kind of enemy ships that are attacking you. Sometimes those tokens just help you maneuver past a ship. Sometimes it helps you destroy the ship. Sometimes it just freezes the ship so they don't attack, but then they don't go away. And depending on how you defeat them, gives you different rewards. Maybe it's just draw another chip out of your bag, or maybe it's add a better chip to your bag. Once you have gone through this, essentially the whole Warp's Edge, the kind of story behind the game is that you actually like rewind time and go about them again. You've like learned from your mistakes and you can warp back in time. So you're seeing all the same ships again, but with better equipment, better chips this time. All eventually trying to get through all the enemies and then get to the boss that's sitting behind them. Because each time you play, you know, you can get through the minions quicker, and then you can get to that boss before, I think it's like 3 warps, or maybe depending on, if I remember correctly, depending on the boss you're playing against, depends on how many warps you get, how many restarts. But this game is just very straightforward, very simple, but there is a decent amount of variety just in the base game, and they now have come out with 2 expansions. If you pick up the acrylic chips instead of the cardboard ones that come in the base game, it's a cosmetic upgrade, but it's very satisfying to draw those out of the bag and just gonna lay them out and decide how are you gonna, I'm gonna use this one to, you know, take on this stalker because it only takes 1 to outmaneuver him, and then I'm just gonna freeze the Reaver, and you know, whatever it is. And each time you work backwards, you get to get a little upgrade that you might be able to spend, like, oh, I can spend a green chip on this and it freezes 3 guys or something like that, or freezes everybody that's a 2 or less, something like that. So yeah, it's just a fun game. This was the kind of follow-up to Proving Grounds, and was just such a step up in the right direction. I was like, this is what I'm hoping it can be. And just a note on that, hopefully very soon on the channel, I believe they have just now started delivering. I haven't gotten any type of tracking number yet, but I have gotten the address verification request from Quartermaster Logistics saying, please verify your address. So I know that Reckland Run is the 3rd game in the Solo Hero series. Hopefully we'll be seeing that in the new year, beginning of the new year. That'll be one of the first games I cover. So there you go. That is Warp's Edge, a bag builder with a space theme. Again, it's a solo-only game. Number 4. This is One Deck Dungeon. So One Deck Dungeon is not really a bag builder, pool builder, dice pool builder. Essentially, you take on the role of a hero. Here you can see in the upper right corner is a paladin. And paladins start with certain statistics. Those statistics, the sword, the foot, and the blue swirly thing, which is magic, represent a number of that colored dice that you can roll every given round. You're going to roll those dice out. Well, you'll see in the lower right here, there's some examples of some of the smaller minions or encounters or traps or something like that that you may see in the dungeon. So you'll flip over one of these cards, you'll spend time, so similar to how Unbroken worked. You don't have forever to make your way through the dungeon, but to say take on that skeleton guy, you're going to need to put up 4s or better in yellow on those top 4s, and then you're going to need the colors are a little off in this. Those greens should actually be blues, but a 5 and a 6 in blue. So if you don't even have 4 yellow dice to roll, you're going to go into this and you're going to probably take some damage. Now you get to decide which ones you cover up, and depending on which ones you leave open is kind of the damage you're going to take. There's the ability to re-roll some rolls, and then black dice, you'll see the black dice in there. Those are like wilds. There's something very satisfying about rolling out these dice, because near the end of the game you're rolling out like 20 some odd dice and choosing where they're going to go. As you defeat a creature, you can then decide, do I want to use this creature to give me additional dice every other turn from here on out? Do I want to use it to just kind of gain XP? Because once you reach a certain XP, you get like a new spell, you get a new, or you can get a new potion, you can get a black die every turn, things like that. Or do you want to spend it on a skill, which you kind of tuck underneath? So you can see on the right, he's got cards stacked underneath going to the left, and coming down, and even cards on the right, all to, you know, build up this quite large dice pool that he gets to roll every time. The game does use small dice, you know, the little, they're either 8 or 10 millimeter, so smaller than standard, but when you've got a ton of dice in your hands, you want them that small. This is a small box game, and it's just very satisfying. It's also very satisfying to play on the app. There's a little less fiddliness of keeping up with, all right, which dice do I get to roll? Because a lot of times you'll do a skill that'll give you a die, which then you're not going to get the next turn. So you have to make sure you are, you know, keeping what your standard dice pool is separate from what bonuses you may have gotten in. But there is just something very satisfying about rolling that many dice out. And then you just, it's like doing a little puzzle. Well, a logic puzzle of, all right, I want to put this one here, this one here. Oh, I want to use this one on a skill because that will turn this 4 into a 6. Things like that. This one, similar to the Solo Hero series, just got a kind of sequel, and that is One Deck Galaxy. That one I actually have in my possession and am working my way through preparing a video for, so that will either be coming near the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Just keep an eye out for that. Spoiler alert, that one seems to be right up the alley with the same just dice chucking wondrousness, but is a little bit more complicated. It's a step up in complexity. So if that's something you're looking for, keep an eye out for that coming up on the channel. Number 3. I apologize, this video is getting a little bit longer than the last one, so I'm going to try and wrap these last few up pretty quickly. Number 3 is Super Skill Pinball. I've chosen Holiday Special to put on this picture simply because I covered it most recently on the channel, but there's now 4 versions, because there's a Star Trek version, there's the original, and then there's like the second version and this one. So this is another one that you can technically play up to 4 players, but if there's only one set of dice in the game, and everybody's going to use the numbers, one of the 2 numbers rolled on the dice each round. And so if you bust, if you lose your ball, you kind of just have to, I guess you could start your next ball while the other person's still going, but then you don't quite know how well they did on that round. Ultimately, it just seems like, why? Just save this for yourself. This is an excellent little game that replicates pinball in a way that I didn't even think was possible in a board game, in a roll and write game. So you're going to roll those 2 dice out, and you can see the little silver balls, which are just like flattened chrome balls. And you can start up at the top of the table, and you have to pick one of the numbers, and then you kind of cross through. All right, well, I'm going to say that my ball hit this bumper. Well, you cross through the 5 on that bumper. Well, you can't use that 5 again until you've hit every other number on the bumper and cleared the bumper. So inevitably, you're going to have to fall down to a lower number, and then you fall down to a lower number, and then you eventually hit the flippers. Well, the flippers can send it either up to the right or the left. So, you know, which do you want to go from there? So it's really just roll the die, choose one of the numbers, move your little ball on the table, mark off where it's going, and you score points. Each table, you know, kind of scores points a little differently, but it's all just dry erase. You just mark it here and roll again, mark it here, roll again. Oh, you got some multipliers. There's multi-ball in the game, which just means that you have 2 balls on the table and you have to use both numbers. So when you roll both dice, one ball's got to go this way, one ball's got to go that way. It just works. It's not overly complicated. It looks like there's a lot going on, but most of that is just text explaining what happens when you like knock down all these stand-up targets or something like that. The tables do a really good job of just giving you all the information you need right there on the placard, so you don't have to go back to the rule book. This game doesn't take very long, and usually there's at least, well, in this one there's only 3 tables, but all the rest of them there's at least 4 tables, so there's a lot of variety within the game. It's dry erase, so there's not a ton of components. It just works. It's just fun. So if you are a fan of pinball, check this game out. Or if you're a fan like me of pinball and or any of these 3 movies, because this was a lot of fun. The first one I played was Christmas Vacation, and it's like, ooh, squirrel! You know, every time I'd mark off one of those little saucer targets, I'd be like, squirrel! Yell squirrel, or, you know, I'm not going to say it online, but something's full. It's not written on there. It's a clean family game, but if you're playing it like me and you're just playing by yourself, you're just going to keep saying it. So anyways, that is Super Skill Pinball. This one highlights the holiday edition, but there's plenty of options to choose from. Coming in at number 2 is Final Girl. So this one surprised me. I thought that this one would be my number 1, but when I kind of went through my ranking system, it ended up at number 2. But could easily be my number 1. Let's just put it that way. This is one of these. This is a solo-only game. There's no multiplayer. There's no control the bad guy options. This is pure solo. What you are tasked with is being the final girl in a horror slasher film. The girl who ends up surviving somehow and defeats the bad guy. In this game, you're going to have a set of cards that you're going to start the game with, and you're going to spend time to play these cards down and take these actions. There's some dice rolling, so the dice can really screw you if you want, but essentially the cards are something like, all right, move, and if you roll well, it's move 2 spaces. If you roll poorly, it's lose 2 time and don't move anywhere, you get lost. And if you, the more scared you are, the less dice you roll. So if you are more confident, you can roll more dice. That's a way to mitigate it. But what happens is that you use all these cards, well then you set them down and you don't get them back right away. And you're going to have to spend time, any time that you didn't spend on cards at the end of the round, to purchase more cards from this kind of static market. You're going to get those cards, and once you spend those cards, they're going to go back into the market. Eventually you'll get those free cards that you started the game with back, but not for like a whole round cycle. So if you use all your run cards up at the beginning of the game, all your move cards in the first round, you'll have no way to move in the second round. So there's just stuff like that. So there is a lot of dice checks in the game, which some people may or may not like, but this game just does such an amazing job of making you feel tense and pressure. Oh my god, he's coming, the butcher man is gonna get me, holy cow, I'm scared. Even though you could see him, it's just miniatures, or meeples if you don't have the miniature cosmetic add-on. But it's an incredibly thematic game. What's nice is that you can get the core box, which has the cards in it, and then you pick up whatever expansions you want. So the core box you can't do anything with, but the core box is only like $20, and then you pick up another $20 expansion. Say you always liked the Jason movies, so you're going to pick up the Butcher at Camp Happy Trails, or you really like Poltergeist, so you're going to pick up the Poltergeist one that's in Creech Manor house. Each of the maps plays a little differently. Each of the bad guys plays a little differently, and you can mix and match. Each bad guy and setting comes with 2 final girls who each play uniquely different in a way. But you could play the Jason Butcher character in Creech Manor house, and you could play the Poltergeist out at Camp Happy Trails. You can mix it all up. So obviously a lot of people just have everything there is to offer, and they're getting ready. Next year they'll be coming out with season 2, and that'll be doing things like Aliens and The Thing, and what else is there? Aliens is the big one that I remember, that I'm excited about, but that'll be coming to the channel when they come out with it. But yeah, this one, just the theme works really well. It's a great little horror game. It's not gory though. It's not something that you couldn't have out in front of your children, but there is definitely a sense of tension and suspense in the game, and yeah, it just works. It works well, and once you've learned the core game, you can play any of the expansions, because it's just a system. It's a system. You learn how to play the system, and then you just add in the final girl, the setting, and you just plug and play. Who do you want to play against? Where do you want to play against them? Done. All right, we are going to round out this video, obviously, with number 1. And that is Under Falling Skies. This one actually kind of surprised me, because I did not jump on the Under Falling Skies wagon as soon as this game came out. There was a lot of hype about it, a lot of good things said about it, and I just didn't jump on that wagon right away. But once I did finally decide to bite the bullet and purchase this game, I was like, wow. It's just so simple, but such deep decisions to make. essentially each round you're just rolling dice out, and where you place the die in the column moves the enemy ship down. It's kind of like Asteroids or Centipede, that the ships come down this, you know, retro arcade looking screen. They're coming down from the mothership, and they're going to move X number of spaces down that grid. So if you put a 6 down in that row, you better be ready for that ship to come 6 spaces down. And if it makes it all the way to, in this picture, Paris, you're going to, you know, some bad things are going to happen. But if you put a 6 somewhere, that means that that action that you placed it on is that much more powerful. Also, you'll see that little orange thing with the electricity on it. That's like this bulldozer that's creating your underground base, you know, your NORAD or whatever. So at the beginning of the game, it's further back, and you need to spend certain die to push it and open up rooms. So not all of those rooms are open to you right off the bat. And again, just deciding, ooh, here's a 6. 6s aren't always great because that thing is going to move down 6 spots. But sometimes you want to move it down 6 spots because 6 spots down is where one of your big air defense guns is and can take it out because it's right on the spot where the air defense gun aims. And that's really all there is to the game. There is but a campaign built into the game that I didn't even like realize was there when I bought the game, because people just rave about the game in general. But there is a little campaign that I'm not going to spoil, which was excellent. So yeah, this is not a a small box game, but it's not a big box game. The dice are nice, big, chunky wooden dice. So they roll a little light. I would have preferred them to be a little heavier for it being a dice rolling game, but it works because it doesn't make the box too heavy. But yeah, there's like several cities you can play, which change things just slightly enough. You know, that comes with nice little plastic motherboard or chip pieces. You can upgrade it. I've seen some great upgrades on Etsy for this game. So yeah, it's just it's a puzzle. Again, you'll notice on this list there's a lot of games that involve using dice placement games, things like that, rolling dice. But there also is just something very satisfying to rolling dice, at least in my opinion. So check this one out. This one and Final Girl are easily my top 2 favorite solo games, at least as of 2022. So go check them out. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. And if you are interested in the remainder of the 12 Days of Christmas list, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you tomorrow for another top 12 list. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.